Andwala pinche sangero pashu anye chela. Why are you not reacting? Godverdamme.
Oh, you've got the picture
Hi, everyone. Very nice to see you. People are waving. Lovely to see you again. I think there are also some people who I haven't seen before, which is wonderful. We're going to talk this week about becoming your own therapist. And we'll have 2 nights to do that. There's quite a lot of material that could be covered, and I'm going to try to condense it so that we're going to talk about, I think, the main issues that we face when thinking about our own mind and helping ourselves. So I've split the 2 sessions that we have into the first session. We're going to talk about the problems that we have and how we can look at that from Buddhist perspective. And then the next evening, on Thursday evening, we'll talk about what kind of tools we have in Buddhism in order to counteract the crazy mind. Can I say it like that? So we'll start today with a small meditation. I'm going to try to have enough time at the end for some questions and also for a meditation. But when we start, it is very good to focus the mind, to let go of everything that has been in our mind, that is keeping us busy, and just to give ourselves permission to be fully present, to fully listen, to not be distracted what might happen in the future or what has happened in the past. Try to make that totally unimportant for this moment. You know, this moment is for you, and if you want to get most out of it, it's best if you can keep your mind in the here and now. Then you hear most things, you connect on the deepest level, and then you can do more with whatever information that you receive and appeals to you. So when there are questions during the session, you can you don't have to wait till I stop for questions. You already can put them into the chat box. Everybody knows where the chat box is. On the bottom of the screen, there's a bar and there is one icon that says chat. And if you click on that, you see on the right side of the screen a place where you can put in a message. So if you put there your questions, then either at the end of the teachings or sometimes during the teachings, I have a look at that and answer what I can. And those who are in the Gompa, I think you have an arrangement with Judy that you can write your questions down. And then somebody will put them in the box. All right. Everyone ready to start? So to start, we first let our mind connect with our body and with our breath. And in order to do that, you make sure that you sit comfortable, either on a cushion or on a chair. You have an active posture, which means that your back is straight. But then at the same time, you let go of the tension in your shoulders and your back so that your posture is relaxed. And then by focusing either on your body or on your breath, you allow your mind to calm down. You allow your mind to be fully present in the here and now. When we let go whatever was in our mind, when we let all the thoughts that are normally there, when we let them come to rest, our mind is open, willing to hear, willing to listen, to absorb. And then we can set a positive motivation by thinking that we are not just listening for our own benefit, but we're doing that for the benefit of all sentient beings. By understanding our own mind better, by understanding how we create our problems, by understanding how we can develop minds that counteract the problems, by understanding how we, by developing our wisdom and compassion, our mind becomes more and more in accordance with reality, in line with reality. We can see that when we develop a mind in that way, the mind expands and the mind deepens. And only with that can we be of benefit to others. So this is not just about our own success. That I'm going to learn something that is only good for me and I'm not going to share that with anyone. But this is to, whatever we learn to open the heart, we learn to reach out to others, we learn to connect with others. So it's going to be of benefit to everyone. And with that in mind, we can take refuge. And maybe today we do 1 time in Tibetan and 2 times in English. And if you have the text or know the text by heart, you can join me. Sangye chedan sangye chonam la janchun badu dani kyapsu chi nage jinsangi pe sonam ropa pinchi sangye ropa shu. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. And then we can start becoming your own therapist. So the fact that you are here must mean that you are somehow aware that you are not in control of your own mind. Maybe I should say not fully in control of your mind, but once we start looking into it, we are really not in control of our mind. You must be aware that you have certain problems, certain issues that are difficult to fix, or maybe you have certain problems and issues that keep coming back. You cannot put the finger on what's actually going on. Why do I not master this? Why can I not change this? Why is it coming back to me again? And maybe you are aware that you are reacting in ways that are maybe not so healthy. Maybe, I don't know, some people, they suffer from having tantrums where they get very upset about not too big things. Other people, they suffer from addictive behavior. And this is not healthy, but I do not know how to change it. I don't know how to fix it. So knowing that you have a mind that is not so healthy is already fantastic. That's what we first need to acknowledge. And I think the fact that you are here must mean that you already have some insight in that. And so you must also know that in Buddhism, there are many tools that might be able to help. You might not yet know what to apply and how to apply and when to apply what, but there must be something, because I don't know, when we look at His Holiness Dalai Lama, he is really an example of how to control the mind, how to be always loving and compassionate and never having that anger arising in an uncontrolled way or that attachment arising in an uncontrolled way. And also there are many lamas, like Lama Zopa Rinpoche and Geshe Tenzin Zopa. They're fantastic examples that show us that there are teachings in Buddhism that help us to control the mind, that help us to create a healthy mind. So that's where we are right now. We are here. We know that something needs to be done. We know that we are in the right place. And then talking about becoming your own therapist, I would say let's first look at how you would like your therapist to be. If you go to a therapist, what kind of person would you like to meet? What kind of qualities would you like to see in that person? And then if you have some kind of ideas, maybe you say the therapist needs to listen from the heart. The therapist needs to have empathy. The therapist needs to know about how my mind works. This therapist needs to be there to support me when I go through difficult times. The therapist needs to give me space to experience painful experiences. Right? And maybe have more qualities. And so then if you have certain wishes for a therapist, you have to think, can I give that to myself? Can I give myself the space? Can I hold the space for myself when I go through a difficult experience? Can I listen to what is really going on inside? Can I support myself when something awful happens to me, or I feel that I'm failing? Can I still support myself? And so by wondering about that, I think it is very important, if we want to become our own therapist, that we spend some time. And I think that is where you start. We cannot go into all the details of that here right now, but what we start is, how do I relate to myself? Am I kind to myself? Do I talk to myself in a nice way? Do I soothe myself when I'm upset? And so then I think one of the qualities or that your therapist needs to have, or one of the views that your therapist needs to have, is that she can see your inner goodness, and that she can see, he or she can see your potential for change. Right? You do not want to go to a therapist who thinks that you are innately a bad person, or you are wrong anyway, so why would I listen to you? You want to go to someone who sees your goodness behind all the negative minds that arise, behind all the pain that arises, so that they help you to connect back with that inner goodness. So the essence of Buddha's teachings is that it shows us the capacity of a mind. And the methods that we have in Buddhism are all in order to develop that mind and to develop a deep understanding of ourselves and of all other phenomena. And that knowledge that will help us to find a healthier way of responding to situations or to experiences that we have. So in Buddhism, if we talk about the nature of the mind, you know, if I'm thinking about a therapist who I would like to connect with my inner goodness, then in Buddhism, we talk about the fact that the human nature is pure. You know, our mind is pure by nature. The nature of our mind is that there is no ego. I'm seeing that my computer needs a restart. This is really, let me just see if I can postpone that. Let's see what happens. Normally they wait till I restart, but so our nature is pure from the beginning. And when we spoke about healing the mind, for those who were there at that time, we spoke about that our mind is like the blue sky, you know, clear, totally clear by nature, no clouds. But then positive and negative emotions come, thoughts arise in the mind, feelings arise in the mind. They all arise and then they go again, just like the clouds. They're coming and going. But these clouds, these thoughts, these emotions, they cannot touch the mind, just as the clouds cannot touch the blue sky. So our fundamental nature, no matter how negative, no matter how disturbed our mind is, that fundamental nature never changes, never gets polluted, never gets touched by all these negativities. It is waiting there behind the clouds of the negative emotions, pure from the very beginning. So if we would think my mind is actually not pure, you know, I am, and some in Christianity we learn, some people have learned that from Christianity. I've also heard that other Christians, they do not do that, but some people do. That we are sinners from the beginning, you know, that we are bad by nature and we have to change that nature in order to become good people. If you think like that, if you are not able to see your own impurity, it's very difficult to have hope for change, right? If we would really have a negative nature, you can only put some beautiful bandages on it, you know, to make it look nice. And you can pretend you're kind and you can pretend that everything is good inside. But if you deeply believe that it is not good inside, you know, you can never really become as good as you are by nature. Just naturally good. You know, that is actually, according to Buddhism, what we are. His Holiness is not pretending he is a good person. His Holiness has purified his mind so much, he has connected so much with his inner goodness, that he naturally is like that. Right? You can only become like that when you are good by nature. So if you have any beliefs that you are not that. You know, these beliefs, according to Buddhism, they're not in accordance with reality. They're not what you are. These are things that you have learned through your life, ideas coming from others, but they have nothing to do with what you actually are. You know, so this is something that we first have to let go. I did some teaching, you know, this can be a difficult topic for, I know there are many people who struggle with this. And to go into that today in detail, I do not have enough time for that. But on my YouTube channel, there are 6 teachings on self-compassion. And they talk a lot about how to connect with that inner goodness, you know, and gives you many different ways of understanding our own lack of self-compassion and how you can transform that. The better we understand our mind, you know, now at the moment our mind is quite out of control. But once you understand the mind, really understand, the mind naturally becomes in control. You know, because when we understand the mind, then naturally we're not going to go to these things that are disturbing the mind. We are not following that anymore. When we understand the mind, naturally we can see through that. And so when we do that, then the mind is in control. I'm not overtaken by my disturbing emotions. So that's what we're trying to do. You know, Buddhism is not so much about having dogmatic views, but it is about connecting with experiential wisdom knowledge. Yeah. How do we do that? So we are more interested in understanding what is happening right now. What am I feeling? What am I experiencing? How am I reacting to that? They're more interested in what is your fundamental nature and how can you connect with that? And how can I find satisfaction? We all want that, but we all know that we haven't found that yet. So Buddhism talks about how can you find satisfaction? How can you find happiness and joy instead of misery and depression and misery and depression? So that is the purpose, the real purpose of Buddhism, understanding your own mind, understanding your own psyche, understanding your own feelings. So let's look at how we find happiness. If we look into what our happiness is, you know, when do I say I'm happy? I'm happy when I have pleasant feelings arising in my mind. And I'm not happy when I have unpleasant feelings arising in my mind. And whether that is a little bit unpleasantness or whether that is deep depression, or deep anger, there is a huge range of unpleasantness. All that, whatever arises, I'm not happy. When pleasantness arises, yes, I'm happy, you know. Big pleasant feelings or small pleasant feelings, that all gives me the feeling I'm happy. So these feelings are either physical, and they're physical when they're connected to the 5 senses, to when we see something beautiful, when we hear nice sounds, when we taste something delicious, when we smell something nice, that all, or when we have, you know, nice material in on our body, or somebody's touching us in a pleasant way, that all causes pleasant feelings to arise. And then we have mental feelings, which arise dependent upon our thinking. So I go, you know, if I have done something yesterday that was really nice and I'm thinking about that today, pleasant feelings can arise again. Or even when I'm, you know, having meetings with friends and we talk nice to each other, and then, you know, things are happening in my mind, and I'm thinking I'm such a wonderful person, and I'm, you know, pleasant feelings arise. So what we do is I make contact with an object, and then a feeling arises in the mind. And what we think is my happiness, that feeling that arises in my mind, it's coming from that object, or it's coming from a person. If we have people that we feel comfortable with, that we love, that we like to be with, that means that pleasant feelings arise in our mind in dependence on these people. Right? Then we believe that if I want to be happy, I want to be with these people. They make me happy. You make me happy. This object makes me happy. Right? Same with unhappiness. Also, that comes from the things. Oh no, I don't want to be with that thing because that makes me unhappy, or that person makes me unhappy. I do not want to be with that. So when pleasant feelings arise in the mind, what we do, we react with attachment. We follow that with attachment. And when unpleasant feelings arise, that is followed by aversion. This is very automatically. We cannot change that. But what we do is we believe that my feeling is coming or is caused by that object or caused by that person. And then we follow the feelings in order to get more, or we follow the feelings in order to get less, you know, when we talk about unpleasant feelings. So then there are also neutral feelings, and when they arise, we actually ignore what is going on and we do not want to see reality. But the neutral feelings, you know, they're not so visible in the mind, so we won't talk about that today. I just want to talk about attachment and aversion. Both attachment and aversion, when they arise in the mind, attachment and aversion are reactions to our feelings. And when they arise in the mind, they disturb the mind. Can you see that? When attachment arises in the mind, it can feel pleasant, but at the same time, there is this feeling of kind of anxiety with it. You know, it is not a mind that is peacefully relaxed, totally fine with whatever. Attachment is like, oh, I want that, or I want more. So that makes the mind disturbed, makes the mind restless. And therefore, it is called a disturbing emotion. Aversion, in the same way, disturbs the mind. And we can see that especially when we look into when aversion becomes anger. You know, we know that when anger arises in the mind is very disturbed. Also, that is a negative emotion. So both, according to Buddhism, both attachment, which we think brings us happiness, and aversion, which to us helps us to separate from suffering, are both disturbing our mind. And therefore, they're both called negative emotions. The characteristic from negative emotions is that we do not need a rational mind in order for them to arise. You know, I think at least 70% of our day, we go on automatic pilot. Right? We just follow our feelings. We follow our feelings. We do whatever feels good. We do whatever pops up in our mind. And we do it. We're not even thinking, is that wise? Is that clever? Is that helpful? Is that beneficial? We do not question that. We just follow. So when we just follow, these are the moments our mind gets disturbed. And it can be slight, you know, that you don't even feel it and you still feel good. You still feel good. But there is a restlessness. There is you will keep moving. You know, you sit and you relax and you like it, and then you think, oh, I want to have a cup of coffee, and you get up and you make yourself the coffee and come back and you sit down and you think, oh, I'll go and have a look what is outside, and you get up and you look what is outside and you come back and you sit, and and you feel good, but that is a restless mind. If you would really check if your mind is disturbed, you can see that the mind is not peaceful, the mind is not calm, the mind is not free. You need to do all the time something. And so attachment and anger, when they arise in the mind, or attachment and aversion, they disturb the mind. And one of the problems is that whatever we perceive under the influence of attachment and aversion, although what we see comes from disturbing emotions, we believe that what we see, what we hear is true, right? If someone hurts us and we get very angry, then we feel that that person really hurt us, really wanted to, make us suffer, is really a bad person, really deserves something to happen to him or her. It is really true. We cannot, how you say that? We cannot see the gray areas anymore. Once disturbing emotions arise in the mind, everything becomes black and white. It is really like that, or it is like this, but there's nothing in between. And if somebody is really bad, we cannot see the positive qualities of that person anymore. And if somebody is really fantastic, we cannot see any negative aspects of that person anymore. So the mind becomes a bit unrealistic, becomes a little bit extremist. It is like this. And so when the mind of attachment arises, the mind of attachment is often concerned with things that are still going to happen, things that are going to come in the future, things that we think are going to come in the future, but we do not know what is going to come in the future. But attachment seems to know, oh, I'm sure this is going to go, I don't know, this is going to go bad, and this person is going to react like this and this, and or maybe we have positive thinking about the future. But it is about a future that we do not know yet. So it is a non-existing future. So whatever we think about that non-existing future is totally coming from our own mind. It's our projection. It has nothing to do with reality. True? We believe it is true, We believe if I go over what might happen again and again and again, it might actually happen like that. But if we check afterwards and say, how many times was my thinking about the future, about what I thought might happen, how often was that accurate? And we will see, I would say 99%, 99.9%, it's not accurate. So aversion, anger, is more connected to things that have happened in the past. And what anger is trying to do is still trying to change what happened. We don't like it. So in our mind, we start thinking, oh, if that person would not have said that to me, this would not have happened to me. I would not feel so miserable as I do not now. Why did they do that to me? It is like the mind wants to try to free ourselves from suffering by going over what happened again and again, trying to change the scenario. Why wasn't like this? Why wasn't it like this? That is our attempt to change the past. So that is also totally not in accordance with reality, not connected to reality. Things have happened in the past. And yes, they were painful. but you cannot change that. Trying to change the past is not a healthy way of trying to remove your suffering. And I know that intellectually you all know that. But I also know that emotionally we all do that. And I'm not different from that. You know, this is due to long-term habit that we do that. So do you agree that when we generate minds that are constantly grasping at the future or trying to change the past, that the mind is not healthy, that the mind is constantly upset? And so if we want to change that, we have to bring the mind more to what is going on right now. What am I feeling right now? When we can connect with what I'm feeling right now, where I am right now, what is important for me right now, that already let go of so many delusions. You know, we become more real, because the only reality that we have is where we are right now, where the body is. That's the only thing that is real. Thinking about the future is just a fantasy. Thinking about the past is another type of fantasy. Both are not here. When the mind goes to the future, when the mind goes to the past, the mind goes away from the body. And the only place where we can act with our speech and with our body is here in the present moment. So when our mind is occupied with the future or is occupied with the past, it is not here in the present moment where you engage in actions. When you can bring your mindfulness, your mind with your body, your actions become more powerful. True. So one way of working with this is that by bringing our mind to the present moment, I can think, okay, I have a problem. And there's going to happen something in the future which is really triggering me. I get very anxious. Then I can say in the present moment, what can I do today so that I feel less anxious about that? And I'm going to work with what I can do today. I'm not going to wind up my mind thinking about what is going to happen in the future. Or I can say, okay, that happened to me in the past, you know, and I cannot change that. So what can I do today so that my mind can deal with that? And so when you do that, you bring your mind to the place where you become powerful, where you have your power, and where you can engage in actions that can help you with whatever difficulty you're facing. All right, can you see that? So let's look a little bit deeper. Now you know a little bit what you can do, so we can look at disturbing emotions, right? So you getting, you know, that you think, oh my gosh, my mind is so negative. What do I do with it? There are lots of things that we can do with it, you know. But first, we need to see how the mind works. So I already said, when pleasant feelings arise, attachment follows, and when unpleasant feelings arise, aversion follows. So what is our suffering? Which is, when does aversion arise? What kind of situations? You know, we can say, well, when I suffer, you know, when I have pain. Yes, it's true, when you have pain. But there are many more occasions where aversion arises. For instance, if we do not get what we want, you know, certain emotions arise that come from aversion. We don't like it. Or if we get something that we don't want, we don't like it. or if we get if we get separated from something that we really like, also then the mind reacts with aversion. So these are really suffering experiences. And so in Buddhism, we call that the suffering of suffering. So that means that aversion, what aversion is doing, it is freeing us from the suffering of suffering or the suffering of pain. It is freeing us from painful experiences, unpleasant experiences, whether that is discomfort, whether that is hurt, whether that is unpleasantness, any of that. Aversion tries to free us from that. So in Buddhism, that is the most coarse level of suffering. And they say, you know, sometimes that sounds a little bit rude, but it is how it is. They say, well, even animals can do that. Even animals know how to free themselves from the suffering of pain. You know, when the animals experience something that they don't like, they run away. They show their aversion, you know, or they have other ways of showing their aversion than just running away. But they have a reaction. I don't like this. So they say, if that is the only thing you are focused upon, then you're acting in the same way as an animal. So what can you add so that you use your human potential, our intelligence? How can we do more with life than just running away from pain and moving towards something that we like? So then in order to see that, we have to go to the more subtle levels of suffering. So the suffering of suffering, I don't know if you are familiar with that. You know, in Buddhism, there are there are many different ways of dividing suffering, but one way is talking about the 3 types of suffering. The most coarse type of suffering is the suffering of suffering, or the suffering of pain. And that is these are the experiences that we label, that we call suffering. Right? We are familiar with that type. But the next level or the next type of suffering is called the suffering of change. And the suffering of change refers to all the pleasant experiences that we have. You know, having a nice taste, having a good feeling, all the good feelings that rise. Buddhism says these are the suffering of change. Why? Because they are in the nature of suffering. Why are they said to be in the nature of suffering? Because the experience never lasts. It is not stable. And if we really check, they never bring us satisfaction. You know, the pleasantness that we experience, they never come with real satisfaction. You may be 1 second satisfied. And then we think, oh, I want more. Or I want to do this again. Or I'm missing something. You know, it's not, you know, a very good meal, but if this was also there, it would be really perfect. Always something missing. Or maybe the pleasure that we experience, the happiness that we experience is not complete. You know? This is our happiness, this nature. This is all we have, you know. So you might think, well, you know, I just have to learn to be content with that. Yeah, in a way, that's true. But it is not all there is. In Buddhism, we talk about a different type of suffering, which doesn't have the qualities of dissatisfaction, which doesn't have the quality of not being complete, that there is something missing. Right? So in Buddhism, there is an other type of happiness, and I will come to that. But I want to go a little bit into that. What we experience as happiness, that is not real happiness. You know? If something would be real happiness, then Buddhism says, the more I have of it, the happier I should become. And we can't say that with samsaric pleasures. Because every pleasure that we experience, if we keep indulging in the object, at a certain point, the pleasure changes from, I really like this, into, oh my gosh, too much. If I really like chocolate, and I eat chocolate, oh, I feel very good. I feel very happy. I'll take another piece and another piece and another piece. And there is going to be a point that you think, oh, I don't want any chocolate anymore. And we can see that when we eat, we can see that when we, go in the sun, we can see that when, with any activity, I have a nice hot shower. Well, that is only for a certain period of time, nice. And then at a certain point, you feel like, no, I have to get out of it. It's enough. And if we would stay, we actually start suffering. Right? So the fact that after some time engaging in that experience, there's going to be a moment that your happiness changes into suffering. And so therefore it is called, our pleasant experiences are called the suffering of change, because that moment will come if we keep engaging in that action. True? So the pleasure that we experience depends upon many causes and conditions. If we think about the pleasure in Buddha, not the pleasure, I shouldn't say pleasure. If we think about the happiness in Buddhism, which is real happiness, what we're talking about is a happiness that the more we practice that, the more happiness will come. And there is not going to be a turning point where it changes into suffering. It goes up, only up. And that happiness is real because that happiness does not depend upon causes and conditions. So how does that work? So Buddhism says real happiness is experienced when we have freedom from our delusions. If we would be free from attachment, aversion, and all the delusions that arise dependence upon that, our mind is naturally free and with that naturally happy. And the more we are free from delusions, the more happiness we experience. And although that happiness comes about due to the freedom of the delusions, once you have reached freedom of delusions, that quality of happiness itself doesn't depend upon anything. That's just the nature of your mind. So removing the delusions, we need to create causes and conditions. We need to apply methods so that the delusions disappear. But then the mind that frees itself, or that becomes more manifest, that mind is the nature of a mind that doesn't depend upon anything. So that is, I'm back. That is stable happiness. That is real happiness according to Buddhism. So then what is the happiness that we experience, which is pleasure? Why is that in the nature of suffering? What is it in actuality? So what Buddhism says is the pleasure that we experience, the happiness that we experience, is the moment when one type of suffering is finished and a new type of suffering is about to begin. That moment we experience as pleasure. So for instance, if I am very hungry, and I'm so hungry that it's unpleasant, it's uncomfortable, I'm experiencing, I really need to eat something, then the moment I start eating, that moment the suffering of hunger is finished. And that first bite, wow, delicious, so yummy. And then the next one is still yummy, but a little bit less than the first bite. And then the next one, still yummy. Then I keep eating, I keep eating, I keep eating. And then there was going to be a point that if I would keep eating, I go back into suffering. Right? So then I stop eating and I think, oh, finished with eating. You know, that moment, the suffering of eating stops. And the suffering of not eat, or the suffering of not eating starts. You know, it feels like a relief. I don't have to eat anymore. I'm going to do something else. Maybe I'm going to lay down on my bed, and you know, that's so nice. But that's the suffering of laying on the bed starts right there. Why is that suffering? Because at a certain point you get tired of it and you say, oh, I want to get up. I want to do something else. So when you get up, the suffering of laying on your bed stops, and then the suffering of whatever else you're going to do starts. So these gaps, you know, and if you look at our life, we are chasing these gaps all the time. We want to feel good. You know, so what we do, we take what makes us feel good. We know that we shouldn't go too far because then suffering comes. So at a certain point, we have to change. And then we start doing something else, and that makes us feel good. And then we change. It makes us feel good. But we are actually chasing these reliefs. And we try that suffering doesn't become too much. So we shouldn't wait too long before we change our activity. And so that means that we have to keep going. You know, this is never finished. This is never finished. This is samsara. Never finished, no matter what we're doing. There is never going to be that moment that we say, oh, I'm done. I can rest now. It's not going to come. It cannot come. And we need to see that, you know, because if we really want to make our mind healthy, we have to say, I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop doing that. I'm going to do things differently. Because I can see that this, you know, I'm like a little rat in a wheel, running. And that rat is never going to stop. And what I really want is actually get out of it. But I'm so habituated to engaging in this way in activities, I do not know how to get out of it. This is what Buddhism is teaching. How do we get out of the rat, of the wheel? How do we stop running? Next time we talk about that. So this is the second type of suffering. And then there is a more subtle type of suffering, which is called the all-pervasive compounded suffering, or the suffering of conditioned existence. So the suffering of conditioned existence refers to the fact that we take rebirth in an uncontrolled manner, which means we have no freedom where we're going to go. But we have to go, you know, we're not wrapped in that wheel. And when we die, we have to go to the next place. And where we're going to go, we do not have control over that. Because we are not free of the disturbing emotions. And the disturbing emotions is what impels us into the next rebirth, all together with our karma. And so we take rebirth under the influence of karma and delusions. We take a new body. And then that body that is created by karma and delusions is under the influence of karma and delusions. And also it produces constantly karma and delusions. And so this is what keeps us going. Yeah. And so there is a lack of freedom. We think we are quite free people at West, right? And the moment we are a little bit locked up, and Adelaide I heard not so much, but in other places in the world, people are locked up. In Victoria, people are locked up. They cannot go to many places. So we might feel, oh, I'm not so free anymore. But before the virus, we all had a feeling, well, I'm free to do whatever I want. right? We have this feeling of freedom. I can choose whatever I want. And Buddhism says, well, actually, you do not. You think you have freedom. But what is really determining what you're doing is your attachment and your aversion, is your disturbing emotions. They are in control. So according to Buddhism, we have a lack of freedom. And lack of freedom is really the source, the cause of all the suffering, all the problems that we experience. And the root cause of that lack of freedom is the mind, and maybe you have heard that before, the mind that is grasping at a self. We believe that we exist in a certain way, which is totally opposite of how we exist in actuality. That is the root cause where it all comes from. And in dependence on that grasping at I am this, we engage in actions. I like that, that I have certain needs. So I want to get what I need. That's attachment. Or I feel I have also a need for protection, so when things are happening that I don't like, aversion is right there to protect me. They both arise in dependence on self, on me. I need to take care of myself. I need this, I need that. And so Buddhism says the way that we perceive that I doesn't exist like that. And so from that, we have the teachings of on emptiness and the teachings on dependent arising in order to counteract that self-grasping mind. Yes. If you have trouble sitting up, it's totally fine to lay down. No problem. So on dependence upon grasping at the self, that the self exists, we think that I exist in the way it appears to me. And then in dependence on that, I have all kinds of ideas about myself, and I might think I'm not good enough, I don't deserve this, I'm not lovable. And then whatever we believe, then we engage in actions, and somehow these beliefs always get reinforced. We prove ourselves right. Isn't it? It's very hard not to prove yourself right. Especially if you have experienced certain things over and over again. Oh, I'm sure this is going to happen. When I do this, this is going to happen. And when we think that, when we really believe that is going to happen. So in order not to prove ourselves right, we have to let go of our self-protection. We have to become more vulnerable. We have to risk that. We have to risk that we're going to get maybe what we fear most. On the basis of our beliefs, we engage in certain actions again and again and again, repeating the same thing, and the same outcome. And then we think, why does this happen to me? I try so hard to get out of it, and I create the same thing. Because we have deep-seated beliefs, how we exist on the ultimate level, but then also conventionally we have deep beliefs about ourselves. And then on the basis of that, we have beliefs about others. And they become, the more we are aware of them, they become, I shouldn't say more coarse, but I think that there are a lot of beliefs that are so subtle, and we identify so strongly with them that it looks like, but that's who I am, but we do not see that not who you are, that is who you believe you are. In actuality, our mind is pure from the beginning. And the beliefs that we have about ourselves, they are often very limiting beliefs. Oh no, that's not for me. Oh no, I can't do that. Oh, I can do something, but only this much. right? According to Buddhism, our capacity is limitless. The capacity of every mind is limitless. According to Buddhism, we have a nature that is determined by loving kindness and compassion, you know. And sometimes we believe, well, you know, I'm just short-tempered. That's just who I am. And we believe it's so strong that we cannot even see that that is just a belief. You know what I'm talking about? Sometimes what is holding us most back in order to be really free from our delusions is certain convictions about ourselves, that we think this is what I am, while in actuality it's not like that. These are the most hard to remove, you know, and often they are connected to deep-seated needs, like the need for belonging, the need to be loved. So if we want to, you know, the more you look into your mind, the more you connect with these aspects of the mind. So I give you a handout, right? And I want to say a little bit about that. And because I think if we understand how our attachment and our aversion works, if we can see how all the problems are coming from these reactions, you know, it is easier to see it in our own life, and then it is easier to do things differently. So I give you a handout where you have two columns, right? One, I do have it somewhere. Let me have a look. On the left side, you have the craving for acquiring material. At the left side, you have all the things that we want, while at the right side, you have all the things that we try to be free from. So if we look into that, at the left side, you see that we are craving for wanting to acquire material things. We want to have comfort. And you look into your own mind, you know, and how the mind wants that. If something is not good anymore, I go to the shop and buy something new, you know, very automatically is that coming. And then when we have something new, we're happy, you know. I have a nice mattress, I have a nice this, I have a good coffee, we're happy. And when we have to say, well, I don't have the money to buy that, or I cannot find something that I really like, or I bought something and I'm really not happy with that, we are unhappy. So we are unhappy when we do not acquire material things, when we can't get what gives us comfort. And then we want to be happy. In order to be happy, we crave for the 6 sense pleasures, right? Whatever we hear, whatever we see, smell, taste, feel, and think about, we want that. We try to find objects that give us pleasure. And we try to be free from the things that give us displeasure or suffering. We're doing that all the time. We like to hear interesting sounds. You know, we like to hear people tell us how wonderful we are, how much they appreciate us, how they think we are kind, how, you know, I love you so much. We want to hear it, because when we hear it, we feel happy. We feel our needs are satisfied. And we do not want to hear the opposite. And then the last one is we want praise. And praise has a lot to do with how you are renowned in the world, how people see you, you know, your reputation. So we want personal praise. and admiration. You know, oh, that person is so fantastic. You know what she has done? She has, and then the whole story. We like people to think about us like that and talk about us like that. And we do not like to hear the opposite. You know, that people start gossiping about us, telling stories about us in a negative way, whether they're true or not, blaming us, criticizing us, whether it's true or not. We both don't like it, right? So we have an attachment to 4 of these concerns. They're called the 8 worldly concerns, because this, if you check in your mind, you know, this is really what is driving us. This is really what we are trying to get and to avoid the whole time. And we spend very little time and energy away from that, doing other things. You know, so these are the worldly concerns. They are concerned with my happiness in this life, me not suffering in this life. And so what we believe is, if I get everything on the left side of the paper and nothing from the right side of the paper, I did a really good job and I'm really happy. And if I get things from the right side of the paper, I shouldn't say that word, I'm stuffed. If I can't find the things on the left side of the paper, also I feel unhappy, you know. So what we are doing is we divide life into 2 things. There are good things and there are bad things. And I just want to go for the good things and I do not want to have the bad things. And I put all my energy that I only have this and I have nothing of that. Well, all these experiences are just life experiences. All part of life, but we only want this and we do not want to have that. And I think, especially in the West, you know, we have perfected this in the last 50 years. We really have learned how to go for the good things and how to be free of the bad things. And I think what that actually does to the mind is that it creates this duality. This is really good and this is really bad. Well, we're talking about, these are all natural experiences of life. You know, there is not one life that can only have good experiences, and there is not one life that can only have negative experiences. What we do, we treat our life like the stock market. You know, I only want to go up. I only want to have the good things. I never want to have the natural depression that one day is going to come. And so what we think, yeah, that is what we think. I just want to have that and not want to have that. But what Buddhism says, the more you crave for the things on the left side, the more you will suffer when you get something from the right side. Or if you have very strong aversion for one of the right side, you know, that means that you also have very strong attachment to the ones at the left side. You might think, I don't really have attachment, but I have strong aversion. But strong aversion normally covers up an attachment. And so we think my problems are gone if I have all the things on the left side and I have not too much from the right side. Well, Buddhism says all your problems will be gone if you let go of your preference. And if you know how to be with both, if you would be okay with getting the things at the right side, if you are totally okay with that, you will have less attachment for the things on the left side. So Buddhism would more focus on being all right when you don't get what you want, being all right with getting something that you don't want, being okay when you get separated from something that you really like. If you can keep your mind in balance when that happens, then naturally there is not much attachment to having these things. Do you see that? So Buddhism does a little bit the opposite of what we are doing. So if I would summarize Buddhism, what Buddhism then does is we say, I want to have the pleasant and I do not want to have the unpleasant. And I think what we can learn from Buddhism is how can we embrace the unpleasant and how can we let go of the pleasant. And for the mind that believes that attachment is that what is bringing us happiness, hearing me say that must drive you mad because you might think, I'm not going to let go of what I like, then how is it going to come to me? Nor do I going to embrace what is unpleasant, but because I really don't want it, But if you would know that 90% of the suffering that we have when there is something unpleasant happening to us is coming from our own mind not wanting it. The moment we can change the mind and say, okay, it's on my plate, I'll take it, 90% of the suffering is gone. And we believe that I have to chase the things that I like. While in Buddhism says whatever pleasant experience you have is actually the result of positive actions that you have done in the future and in the past. It is a result. Your feeling, following the feeling is not the cause of your happiness. Following your feeling is actually, if you're going to look into detail, is the cause of suffering. But the feeling of happiness or the feeling of pleasure that arises in your mind is a result of your good karma. So yes, experience the pleasure. Yes, enjoy the pleasure. But don't chase for more by following the feeling, by craving for more. If you want more pleasure, create more causes for pleasure. Because there is where it's really coming from. So next time I will go into that a little bit more, how we do that. All right, I'm going to look at questions. And then I would like to do a small meditation because if we can see what aversion and what attachment, how that arises in the mind, then we can say, okay, I can see it arise, but I do not have to follow that. All right, so that is what the meditation is going to be about. I'm going to look at questions, no questions. Oh, here. Does karma fit into attachment or aversion? So attachment and aversions are reactions. When we react with attachment and aversion, the rational mind is not present. So it is not a response. It is not an action. It is a reaction where there is the feeling is there and then the reaction is there. So every time that we engage with attachment or aversion, we are creating causes for suffering in the future, because these are disturbing emotions. And when we follow disturbing emotions, they are the cause for suffering. So we create negative karma with that. But then having a body that produces, for instance, a lot of aversion, or you have a body, some bodies, they produce more aversion, some they produce more attachment. That is also a result of karma. So it is not that we can say, I'm just going to stop it like that. The fact that we have this body, we are producing all the time karma, attachment and aversion. So that is also a result of karma. And then engaging in the actions, we produce karma. And so then you see samsara already there. The result and the cause. Is that all right, Liz? Okay. Are there any other questions? What is also a possibility if you're home and questions come to your mind, you can always send them to Judy. Can I say that, Judy? And then she can forward them to me and I can see if I can do next time something with it. All right. So shall I go to the meditation now? Let me see if I see some people nodding. Let me go into the Gompa. Judy, shall I start with the meditation? Can you give me a thumbs up? Okay, cool. I'll do that. So it is a meditation on the nature of the mind. The nature of the mind in which all these delusions arise. So how can we be with the mind so that we do not become slaves from these delusions, so that we do not keep following these delusions? So that's what we're gonna try to do in the meditation. You're up for it? So make sure that you sit in a position that is conducive to your meditation. And if you need to lay on the ground or on the bed, that's fine. You can meditate when you lay down. You can. But the main thing is that your mind is with your body. And it is also helpful for the meditation when your back is straight. A straight back automatically helps to calm the mind. Because a straight back is somehow an antidote to all illusions. So take some time to be present with the body, to let go of all the thoughts connected to what you just have heard. You don't have to remember anything. You don't have to hold on to anything. Trust that your wisdom mind knows, has heard everything that was needed for you, and that will surface whenever you need it. And then during the meditation, try to keep your mind open. Open in the sense that if we can accept whatever arises, that means that there is no aversion in the mind. And if we have no expectations of what might come, there is no attachment in the mind. When we have an open mind in the present moment, we can see the impermanent nature of things. We can see feelings arising in the mind and dissolving back into the mind. We can observe our mind reacting to the feelings. And if we don't follow this reaction, we can see that a reaction naturally dissolves back into the mind. Being mindful gives us the opportunity to see the transit nature of everything. Everything that arises naturally dissolves again. And when we see the impermanent nature of things, naturally there's no clinging to pleasant experiences and no aversion to unpleasant experiences. We realize that there is nothing to hold on to. Everything passes away by itself. Feelings arise in every moment of mind. And when pleasurable feelings arise in the mind, we normally react with attachment. That is our attempt to re-experience the pleasant feelings. The way we perceive it is we first need to have attachment in order to experience pleasure. So we think if I have to give up my attachment, I have to give up my pleasure. But that is not true. When we give up attachment, we actually experience more or more full pleasure. The nature of attachment is that it cannot give you satisfaction. When we follow attachment, there is always something missing, or we want more, or something different. For instance, when we sit, we want to stand up. When we stand up, we want to walk. There's never contentment. And this is suffering. So when pleasant feelings arise, instead of following the feelings, craving for them, trying to hold on to them with your attachment, try to step back and allow the feelings to arise, give them some space. And you can do this by being mindful, by being in the present moment. You will not be carried away by the feeling, and you stop clinging to it. When we practice contentment, we accept what is or what we have. And without attachment, there is no dissatisfaction. And this is where peace begins. When unpleasant feelings arise in the mind, we react with aversion. And this is our attempt not to experience the unpleasant feeling. We deny, ignore, or suppress unpleasant feelings. Or we distract ourselves and indulge in pleasant activities, thinking that we are trying to relax. By rejecting the unpleasant feelings, they actually become stronger. When we meditate, we do not try to relax our mind by distracting the mind, but we are trying to relax the mind by looking at it. By being mindful of it. Because mindfulness helps us to understand the nature of things. It helps us to see the impermanence of things. Then when things happen, we know to let go. We don't get disturbed when we lose something or when things change. And so the mind that is undisturbed by loss or harm is the mind of patience. When pain or suffering occurs, it becomes quickly huge because we are so focused on ourselves. To counteract that, when you experience suffering, try to think of more suffering in the sense of you can think my suffering is nothing compared to the suffering of others. Lama Zopa says, the suffering that I experience in this moment is nothing but the suffering that is still to come. Whatever we experience, when we are very much focused on ourselves, it looks like it is huge. But it is always relative. And the amount depends on what we compare it with. The moment we realize what suffering is, peace begins. Peace lays within the knowledge. As soon as we understand, peace comes. As soon as we understand that we are afraid or worried, we can accept it. And when we accept it, it doesn't become bigger. Then we can bring the meditation to a conclusion. And you can do that in your own way, maybe by recalling what has been most helpful for you, or what you recognize most in your mind, or where you would like to look into further. And then, having come to the end, we can dedicate all the positive energy that we have generated by listening and reflecting and meditating, that all that may become a course for us to develop our full potential of wisdom and compassion, so that we can be of greatest benefit to all sentient beings. And then we can dedicate for all sentient beings in this world, especially those in this world, who all suffer from attachment, who all want to be happy, who all want to be free of suffering, who all find happiness by wanting more. We can dedicate that they all may find the happiness that is beyond the pleasure of attachment. That they all might find the happiness that is the freedom from the delusions. And that they all might find the happiness, which is the peerless happiness of alignment, the perfect state of happiness. And that they might find the teachers to guide them, the teachings that can show them the way. So that they can all live in peace and harmony together. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you enjoyed and that I see you back on Thursday night, same time, 7:15. And then we'll talk about all the different methods that there are in Tibetan Buddhism that can help us to lessen the delusions and go beyond the delusions. All right. Take care until then. And if you want to see the teaching again, you send everyone the link, so that people have an opportunity to. Okay. See you on Thursday. Bye-bye.